What did the weird kid in your school do that you'll never forget? He wrote in my yearbook, when I was 6 years old, I went into a cornfield. I didn't realize it was a maze. I was stuck for several days without food or water. When they found me, the doctors said I'd never be the same. Good luck in college. Stole a car, crashed it, lost both his legs at 17. A few years later he did it again, but this time he stabbed one of the Good Samaritans who tried to help him, and shot at another one. He then led the police on an 8-hour manhunt through tropical jungle by detaching his prosthetics and hiding under the leaves and mud, and using a makeshift raft to escape downriver under the cover of nightfall. The newspaper the next day read Armed and Legless. Andrew Hooker made an album of electronica called Hook Anthems, and each one was a soundtrack for different mundane tasks of his life. He sold only one copy to a maths teacher, and it's also one of my life regrets that I didn't buy one too. The albino kid in school. He would take off running down the hallway with one hand straight out in front of him and yell, "White lightning." He was weird, but everyone liked him. Poured his juice on the table at lunch and suction cupped his mouth over it and inhaled it all like a Hoover when you put it directly onto a hard floor. He's a lawyer now. Put a pig fetus head on the English teacher's car antenna. I'm not sure if he done this with anyone else, but he drew a picture of SpongeBob and Charizard brutally killing me and my friend and then willingly showed it to us. I couldn't help but laugh, but it was actually very well drawn. I liked that kid. A few days before a pep assembly, anonymously posted signs all over school that said the cock is coming. Teachers and school administrators were obviously concerned but clueless. Smuggled a live rooster into the assembly and partway through the opening speech at the assembly, whipped it out over his head as it went apeshit. Entire gym full of kids stood up and started chanting cock. 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 Was not seen at school for a few days after that. Kidnapped a kindergarten from the bus stop and brought her to school claiming it was her daughter. She barked at people and tried to scratch behind her ears with her foot. AMD sniffed people's butts at recess. She was 14. Oh my god, you had a dog girl? We had a cat girl. She would wear all black and had cat ears, cat gloves, cat collar, and even a fucking cat tail, and she would walk around the hallways meowing at people. If she didn't like you for whatever reason, because she never actually spoke to anyone, she would hiss at you and swat at you until you left, but sometimes she would fucking chase you. She had 2 friends if I recall correctly, and she would nuzzle into them and purr. She was the only person who acted like this, and she was that way my entire high school years, albeit a year younger than me. And I'm pretty sure she was in the special ed classes. I graduated in 2018, and I often wonder where she is now and if she's still meowing at strangers. He was generally very weird and erratic. One day he extracted a huge slimy booger out of his nose, turned around to me and a friend and told us full of glee, "Guys, look." Then he stuffed it back into his nose. One day I asked him why he was so weird and he told me with the straightest face, "The jester's cap affords one many liberties." So I don't know if he was just weird or a secret genius, maybe a bit of both. This girl decided she wanted to be pregnant. She proceeded to ask probably half the people in our high school if they would impregnate her, and then when that didn't work she brought a Ziploc bag and asked for guys to jizz in it. Everyone called her Sperm Bank after that, and I honestly can't remember her real name. So, there was a guy at our school when I was a freshman that everyone called Wolfman, who was weird in all the bad ways. He claimed to have superpowers, teleportation, DBZ-like energy creation and whatnot. All the girls said he'd just stare at them if they had class with him. He hung around us freshmen and did his best to flirt with the girls. For an example of his flirting, he once told a girl that while astral projecting, he saw her face on Jupiter. Needless to say, girls stayed away from him. He graduated though, and his brother started at the school. Now, Wolfman wasn't a tall guy by any stretch of the imagination, maybe 5 feet at most, but his brother was a good foot shorter than him. He looked like he belonged in 3rd grade, he never got any taller. It didn't help that he always wore a child's Goosebumps jacket, that made people start calling him Goosebumps. He was even more convinced of his powers than his brother, but at least he was less sexually creepy, but that's all he had going for him. One memorable day I was in math class, and he started shaking violently. People ignored him, so he started flapping his arms around. Wondering if this was an actual seizure, the girl next to him put her hand on him and asked if he's okay. He growled back, "Take your hand off me, this power is too much to contain." She started yelling at him for faking a seizure and he went back to normal death stare forward, grumbling about his powers. He would get almost fully naked to pee in the urinal. Was his name Butters? Ate a sheep eye we were supposed to dissect in science class. Man oh man. After one of my female friends rejected his advances, he proceeded to jump off of his roof, twice, and broke both of his arms. Second thing, he made a wooden weed pipe in wood shop and then tried to smoke out of it in class. Another weird kid, who I might mention probably had a cognitive disability, so I don't want to be mean, hid under a bridge in town and drank multiple bottles of Pepto-Bismol, and then went to school acting like he was drunk. He attempted to get people to drink some with him, and then went back to the bridge and tried to light stuff on fire until the police arrived. Another one, a true Looney Tune of a guy, shortly after high school was caught with a large amount of guns in his trunk, rifles, pistols, and all that, and went to prison/jail over a multitude of crimes. Don't even think he was in a gang, just pure insanity drove him to do insane things. Ended up in a mental institution because his parents bought him a new mattress, and while removing the old one they found multiple mason jars full of blood, no exaggeration, 2 gallons total. There was a police investigation and turn out it was all his blood. His only answer as to why was just in case. There was this huge guy, tall and wide, in our classes. To support his impressive body, he ate a lot. He'd bring an entire roll of cookies, like 20 plus, and stack them on one side of his desk. Then he would take one bite out of cookie number 1, and put it to the other side of his desk. Then he would take one bite out of the next cookie and place that one on top on cookie number 1. He'd go through the whole stack, until all cookies were partially eaten and in a neat stack on the other side of his desk. Then he would do it again, take one bite of the top cookie and place that in the original side of the desk, bite the next cookie, etc. After maybe 15 minutes of biting and stacking, the whole lot was gone. Now we weren't even supposed to eat in class, but he always got away with it somehow. Humped my desk for a solid minute while maintaining eye contact with me, and then said, "Thanks," and just walked away. I'm a guy, this was 15 years ago, on my first day at this new school, and I was just eating lunch at my desk, and this dude just walked up and went to town. No context, no introduction, nothing. Didn't even buy me dinner first. Just wham, bam, thank you desk. Pulled down his pants in the middle of a public bathroom and span in a circle while spraying piss everywhere and shouting around the world. What a daft little punk. I had an autistic friend, and he was afraid of a particular twin. He was minding his own business in the corridors, and each twin was walking towards each other at different ends of the corridor, with him in between. Frightened, he did what no one would expect, jump out the window. He was on the 3rd floor. Thankfully, he wasn't hurt that bad. When my teacher asked him why he did that, he said my life was under grave danger, and I only did what was imperative to be done. To this day, I don't know why he was afraid of them. 7th grade, guy didn't have a pen/pencil for the test and the teacher wouldn't give him one. You need to be prepared, blah. Yeah, the dude took out a paper clip, straightened it out, stabbed himself, and started doing the test using his blood as ink. He was quickly sent to the nurse's office. Robbed a gas station dressed as a ninja, armed with a katana. Stole cash from the register, all the cigarettes he could carry, and a bunch of lottery tickets. He then fled across state lines with a 17-year-old girl. He was 19. Not a great result for him. College. Halloween party. Weird quiet kid shows up in regular clothes, but wearing a giant strap-on with a doll baby attached to it in a certain way. He went as a baby rapist. Guy in junior high had an unsightly amount of earwax and was obsessed with James Bond, who he claimed to be his uncle. He would loudly proclaim that James Bond will kick your ass to anyone who questioned his affiliation with James Bond, made fun of James Bond in any fashion or denounced James Bond's skills. He would literally get into fistfights to protect the honor of James Bond. There was also a girl in my elementary school who never wore shoes and was known for her impressive farting skills. I'll never forget the day when our class was sitting on the library floor during a lecture by the librarian how to handle/read/fold a newspaper. The 90s were weird. It could not have been more boring when all of the sudden out of nowhere the girl unleashed a massive fart that kept going, and kept getting louder and louder to the point that the entire class was in full-blown hysterics while the fart continued to rage on. The hero we needed that day, legend, was in the band during some downtime. Some guy kicks off his shoes and socks and bites the ends of his toenails off. Most of the class casually migrated towards the other side of the room. I'm from a small town. There was this weird kid who was a year older, but he was so weird that even the younger kids would pick on him. I didn't really know him, but I put him in the weird but harmless category. He graduates, and then decides to rob the local taco time with a shotgun. Well, it is a small town. The kids working at the taco time all know him, and pretty much everybody in the taco time also knows him. He got 2 years. Dressed like the Queen of England, hair, shoes, and everything, from elementary to middle, then dressed like a doll for a year, tried to hook up with everyone, got kicked off stage at a talent show for doing a burlesque routine, would work her sexual prowess into every oral report, and her last year she came to school 2 times in just a mini skirt and bra. I didn't know her personally at all, but I've kind of suspected she might have been sexually abused or something. He regularly threw chairs around the classroom, and one time he even held a pair of scissors to a teacher's throat. That was in primary school. He was seriously troubled but seems okay now. Pissed his pants on the last day. He got caught beating it to lowly porn in the library. Edited to clarify it wasn't me. Also, terrifyingly, this blew up. Another edit. Lilicon porn is hentai in which underage-looking female characters are depicted in sexual acts. Cut his own hair while in class, mentioned that he would conquer the world with a revolver. Ended up setting fire to his house and was sent to a mental asylum. Pretty mild stuff. He had a book where he would write in people that wronged him. I got put in for smelling like soap. My brother is a high school teacher and he once texted me that he caught a kid cutting his pubic hair in class. Another kid, not even from his class, randomly ran into the classroom, took some binders out of a bookcase and started jumping up and down on them. Then he ran out of the classroom again. The weird kid in our school was part of our friend group, so 15+ years later we still give him shit about it. During assembly one afternoon, a few weeks from ball or prom, he went up on stage while our entire year was filing into the auditorium and taking our seats. He was part of the A/V club, surprise, so his responsibility was making sure the microphones worked so nobody questioned why he was up there tinkering with the mic. Anyway, 90% of our year has come in at this point when he starts singing Jumper by Third Eye Blind over a karaoke version of the song he found on LimeWire, and he's changed the "my friend" part of the chorus to the name of the girl he wants to ask out to prom. He gets about halfway through the song before one of the teachers realizes it isn't a joke and gets up on stage to drag him out. Everyone is just sitting there going WTF. Half the kids don't know the song and the other half is wondering why he chose it to ask someone out. Turns out the girl he was asking wasn't even in the auditorium yet, so didn't hear his little number. He got detention for a week for being disruptive, but since then we just call him Jumper as a joke, but then it stuck and I don't think anyone in our friend group has used his name since then. Even during his wedding you could tell who he went to school with since they'd ask where Jumper or Big J was. There was this really mentally fucked up kid I could probably write a book about. He went through a phase where he was obsessed with JFK, printed out pictures of him and taped them to everything, his binder, truck, locker, etc. What happened, but later that year all those pictures changed to pictures of Hitler. He referred to this as the time that the devil overtook him with evil. He did this same shit with William Shatner and a teacher at our school, but the bizarre satanic Hitler obsession takes the cake. He was also banned from the computers because the library lady caught him jerking it to porn. He said he was Sonic the Hedgehog. When someone asked his name he would say "I am Sonic" and run away as fast as he could. He even wrote his name as Sonic on homework and tests. Most people never knew his real name. Apparently he put a teaspoon up his arse in assembly. Amateur. I remember once in high school we were on a school camp which included some low-level spelunking. About 60 of us had to squeeze single file on our hands and knees through a narrow part of the cave which was about 100 meters long. There was a small section about halfway along which opened up a bit to allow 2 people to sit shoulder to shoulder. Anyway, weird kid got to this section and decided he really needed to poop. Not sure what he had been eating, but it was a runny one. He was at the front of the column, so we all had the pleasure of crawling through the mess he made, because we'd come too far to turn back. Combine that with poor lighting and poor ventilation and we had a real mess on our hands. A new lad in my primary school pretended his real voice was a deep Scottish accent. At some point he found a piece of broken glass and used it to cut my friend with for some reason, and then we never saw him again. He was a genius, all top scores. One day he called a friend of mine and said, "Hey, what are you doing this afternoon? Do you want to come here so we design a time travel machine?" Who knows when he is now? We were getting DNA samples in biology. Most of the class used spit, but he tried to squeeze milk out of his nipples. Milk. After that didn't work out, he attempted to get pimple fluid from his pimple. When the teacher noticed and questioned, he answered, "I got some out just this morning." This was when we were 14 to 15. Bell rings, playground doors open, weird kid walks directly to the center and screams for a full minute. I thought it was weird then, but now I can relate. He stabbed me with a number 2 pencil in my collarbone area. I went to the hospital, but they said I was fine. My stepdad said I would do anything to get out of school. Fuck both of those guys. Went to a large school, /3,000 students. If anyone said anything to the weird kid that he didn't like, he would stare at you and recite your name and address. A little creepy. Hissed at people in the halls and then bit someone. Edit. Geez, I didn't expect so much attention, but let me answer some questions. Said girl went to my middle school in Chandler, AZ. It seems like every school has a hisser LMAO, but she didn't think she was a snake, she was a cat girl. This is going to sound ridiculous, but during my senior year of high school someone took a huge, and I mean inhumanly huge, shit in one of the girls' bathroom toilets that was far too big to be flushed away. Some kid mentioned seeing it, and in no time somehow the entire school was made aware and gathered around the bathroom trying to get a look at this monstrosity. Picture 50+ high school kids skipping classes just to try to squeeze into a small women's room to stare in awe at an infamous shit. The crowd got so big and unruly that the administration finally caught on and banned people from that particular hallway for the rest of the day under threat of suspension. I like to believe that all of us were that weird kid on that day. During my 6th grade graduation, our class sang a song. Weird kid is standing next to me on stage and suddenly projectile vomits and some of it landed on my shoes. Impressively, he still kept singing while I stood there wide-mouthed in horror and disbelief. I'll never forget all the gasps from the crowd. Weird kid, Dan, was obsessed with cute girl, Casey, for several years. She rejected him for several years. On the bus to a field trip I sat next to him and he was drawing. I glanced over and he was drawing Casey falling off a cliff onto a patch of spikes below. Years later in middle school he also got super mad and threw a desk across the room in English. Not a small desk either. One of those that's a desk/chair attached hybrid. Just fucking yeeted it across the room. Was fucking terrified. There's a litany of things he did, but those stand out to me. In grade 8 this kid would bring a bar of soap with a hole in it and fuck it in class. We would whisper to him, PSSST. Hey, how was it? He'd give us a grin and a thumbs up while we giggled. That was 32 years ago. Recently found out he's a big shot neurosurgeon in England somewhere. Who woulda thought? Not weird kid, but kids. Apparently these 3 really odd guys went camping together. This is in the flip phone days. 2 of them decided to jerk off onto one guy's phone and closed the flip phone. Refused to say what happened after that. When I brought it up with him he said I was number 1 on his hit list. Said he was going to get a bazooka when we joined the military and come blow me up. They all fucked in the woods apparently, but never fully confirmed. At an all-school assembly during my freshman year, a motivational speaker posed an easy rhetorical question to the crowd, and the weird kid in my grade unnecessarily shouted out the answer, to every bored person's sudden delight. For some reason, trying to maintain his authority, the speaker asked our weird kid, "What's your name, son?" Without pause, weird kid stood up from his chair and loudly proclaimed, "My name is Booger." This announcement was met with raucous applause and laughter from the entire student body. It was gloriously random and weird. From then on, the weird kid was known only as Booger in our small town. It fit him better than Sean, and he fucking owned that name until graduation. In 4th grade, a girl ate a whole mechanical pencil next to me. She also regularly ate whole sheets of paper and erasers. The pencil really sticks out in my mind though. Sat on my lap to flirt with my best friend. Edit, full story. My friend, female, was sitting in the library when the weird kid, male, notorious for preying and making girls uncomfortable, saw her. They had never spoken or met at that point. He sat with my friend, started trying to hold her, and kept talking to her, at one point asked her to join his math club. My friend immediately became uncomfortable. She knew where I was eating lunch that day and left to go find me. He followed her. When she found me, also female, I knew something was up because of the look on her face and the fact a guy I've never met was following super closely and talking to her while she gave really clipped answers. My friend sat next to me and the guy sat somewhere else in the room. But then the guy tried to sit between us and ended up sitting on my lap while trying to flirt. I don't remember what I did. I think we both ended up moving seats. A lot of people asked if I was the weird kid. No. The guy in the story became notorious in his university for this creepy behavior, girls feared him, and memes of him were literally taped to the walls of campus. I think people might even know who this is. He repeatedly bugged me about my dead mom until I cried. At least he got beaten up afterwards. In 6th grade, the weird kid climbed up a tree and threatened to jump down. No teacher was nearby and all children around, me included, were like, "Sure, go ahead. Or what do you even want to achieve by that?" He was just 3, maybe 4 meters above the ground, so no one really expected a more serious injury. After the students lost interest in him and some hesitation on his side, he climbed back down. So no big deal, right? Wrong. Fast forward 5 years. Same guy climbs on top of a 12 stories building and this time actually jumps. I always felt a bit guilty, as our reaction, when he climbed up that tree, might have encouraged him to do it properly this time. The guy actually survives by hitting the electricity cables from the tram, which softens his fall, but is in coma for nearly a year with multiple surgeries until he finally wakes up, but will be impaired for the rest of his life.